Everyone get that? Okay, starting off, we're going to make some changes to how this is set up. See, SDL is a library that allows you to bring 2D graphics, sound, music, joystick controls, fonts, stuff like that into your C++ program. And it's an open source library, and it's relatively very efficient. It's written in complete C though, it's not C++. So there's sometimes you'll have to make adjustments for that. First thing you want to do is go to Properties, and we're going to VC++ Directories. And the second line down, it says Include Directories. You want to click on that, and then click on this arrow, click Edit, and there is a folder up here at the top. You want to click on that, and then click on the ellipses, and make your way to the hard drive. That's the C drive. You should have an SDL2 folder. You want to double click on that, and then find the Include folder and click on that and select folder.
What's the folder called underneath
C drive, SDL2, Include. And then click OK. And then you're going to drop down 2 lines where it says Library Directories. We're going to do the same thing. Click Edit, open that folder, click on the ellipses, make your way to SDL2, and there's a lib folder, lib, lib. You want to double click on that, and here you will choose if you're building a 64-bit project or a 32-bit project. We want to stick with the 32-bit, so click x86 and select folder and click OK. There's nothing wrong with doing 64-bit, but for the sake of consistency, everyone do 32. Next, you want to click on the linker tab. Go down to Input, and at the very top it says Additional Dependencies. You want to click on that, click on the arrow, Edit. Up here at the top we're going to type in a few things. SDL2.lib, enter. SDL2 main.lib, enter. SDL2 underscore image.lib, and SDL2 underscore mixer.lib. The SDL2 and SDL2 main are the core of SDL. The image is for bringing in graphics like PNGs, and the mixer is for playing audio. So if you weren't using the audio, then you wouldn't need the mixer. There's another one called TTF fonts or TT fonts. I'm not sure, but if we decide to use fonts, we also need to include that one.
audio, image, mixer?
What?
SDL audio, image, and mixer?
Yes. Did you get it?
I think so, yeah.
There's an underscore in there.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, if you've got all that set up in your system, your subsystem is still on console, you should be good. Click apply, click OK. And up here at the top, we're going to include SDL2 or SDL.h. SDL_image.h. We'll hold off on the mixer for now, but that's the basics of what we need. All right, that links up the library. That was a library written by a bunch of other people, and it's free to use, so we downloaded it. It's already on these systems. You can download it yourself if you want to. And then we linked it up so we can use it. First thing we want to do is create a window that's not the console. To do that, we're going to type SDL_window. Our window will be on the heap, so it's a pointer. Just call it win equals SDL_create window. Create window is going to take a handful of parameters. IntelliSense will show you what those parameters are once you start typing. But the first thing that goes in here is a string for the name of the window. And then put a comma, and the next thing is the position of the window. You can specify a specific X and Y where you want this thing to be created, or there's a handful of enums, like you can do SDL window position centered and it will center it on the screen, or you can do undefined and it will just choose a default, like when you open any other program it kind of puts it wherever it thinks it should go. There's a handful of other ones, you can look them up in the API if you're interested, but for right now we'll do SDL_, this is all caps, window position, or window POS _ undefined. One for the X, one for the Y. A height and width, what did I go with? Okay, the height and width of the window, we'll run like 720p, so it'll be 1280 by 720. For this last one, if you're using this window for an OpenGL context, you could put in an OpenGL flag here. You can also do things like borderless, hidden, resizable, and you can kind of OR those all together. But for right now, we'll just leave that null. That'll be a basic window, like nothing special about it. All right, there's our window. The next thing we need is a renderer. The renderer is what draws the graphics. Renderer, terrible word. And I usually just call it ren. You can call it whatever you want. And it takes a similar function, SDL create renderer. The renderer takes a window, that's where it's going to draw stuff. So we'll give it the window we just created. I don't know if y'all can see that. And then you're going to type a -1, and the -1 is for the drawing device. If you know what device you wanted to use, you could specify a specific one. -1 says take the first one available. We're not really interested in which one it uses, so just go with the -1. And then the last one, we can tell it a few different flags here as well, but we'll go with SDL underscore renderer underscore accelerated. By putting in the accelerated flag, this will use the GPU to draw our graphics, which can give you a little boost in performance in some applications. I'm going to delete that for loop with the state machine in it. Okay, a couple other things we have to do to set this up. Main is purple now. If you're using the dark theme, you'll notice main changed colors. That's because main is type def within SDL, and it's going to require an integer argument here, argc argument count, and then a char pointer args. We don't use that, but it's required to be there, or your program will not run. And you also, because this is a C library, we have to return 0 now, or the program will not run. See if that will compile. Okay, something else we gotta do. Let's go back. Let's open up a file explorer and make your way back to the SDL2 directory. Go to the lib folder. Go to the x86. Click on type up at the top. This will bring all the DLLs either to the top or the bottom. But you need to get all the DLLs, copy those, and then open your project directory. So you can right click, open folder in File Explorer, and just paste those there in your project directory. Your project, so if you right click on your project, you can say open folder in File Explorer and just paste them there.
Yeah, I cannot open SDL2.
Okay, well, maybe we typed it wrong. Maybe it's SDL2 image and SDL2 mixer. Yeah. All right, you should have a white window come up, flash, and disappear. As long as it compiles, that's the important thing at this point.
I'm still getting an error with the SDL2.main. Is it not SDL2.main? Is it just SDL.main?
No? What does it say?
Uh,
What's your error?
cannot open file SDL2.main.
It's not dot. There's no dot.
Oh, that's right. So it's main.lib. Okay.
All right, so that gets our window open. We're going to do a few other things here. Down in main, we'll create a bool. I call it running. Set it equal to true. We're going to create a loop. That runs based on that bool. And inside here, what? Okay, you should have these four things. They're all SDL2, and then there's a .lib, a main.lib, underscore image.lib, and underscore mixer.lib. You can scrap the mixer right now. We don't need it right now. We can add it later if we want to. In our loop, this is how this works. When you're drawing, you draw on a canvas that is not being shown on the screen. Right? This is how almost all drawing APIs work. You're going to draw on some canvas that you don't see. Once you're finished drawing, you present that to the screen. Because if you draw directly on the screen and paste your sprites on there and stuff, there's a lot of flickering that goes on. It looks terrible. So everything's done off screen, and once that frame is finished, it posts it to the screen. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to all right, let's just do a SDL underscore render clear. That clears off the canvas. You can have it clear to a specific color. So we'll set the draw color, SDL underscore set render draw color. This function takes the renderer and then your RGB A. A doesn't matter unless you have blending turned on. It will be full alpha. So like it's best practice to use a dark gray for a background. That way if you're loading in an image and the texture is not loading correctly, you'll usually see something black. But if you have a black background, then you won't see anything at all. So it can help with your debugging. So I usually go something like 20, 20, 20. If you don't know RGB, 0, 0, 0 is full black, and then 255, 255, 255 is all white. And then the alpha, we can leave that 255. Or if you want to be colorful, you can make it red or something. And then before that, we'll present. So SDL underscore render present. And pass it the renderer. Present. Okay, you should get a colorful window, whatever color you set that draw color to. All right. Was anyone successful?
Yes, it's just not as great as I thought.
Okay. I'll come to you in just a second. I want you to try to close that window. If you click on that X,
Yeah, basically trying to crash.
it won't do anything, but you can still close out the console. Now, I'm going to show you that so you understand why we do the next part. We'll come back to that in just a second. All right, we showed that the window does not close very well when you click the X. We want to fix that. I am recording.
You don't have.
You don't have land school.
Yep.
Here comes land school.
I don't like my school land.
Okay. So to fix that, we're going to set up an event handler. The event handler, it checks all the input events. Like if you press a key, you move the mouse, you click the mouse, all those are events, and we're going to set up an event handler. So SDL underscore event. I usually just call it E. That's a structure and it contains all the events. Then we're going to set up a little loop that is going to check these things like in a queue. So say while SDL underscore poll event. And you're going to pass in the address of your structure there. So, and E. All right, and so as long as there are events, this little loop will run. And when it checks that event and nothing has happened, it will move on and draw and present and all that good stuff. So here we go. We want to check for a quit event. That's what this is called. So switch e.type. So any event that happens could be handled by this switch. And the first one we're going to look at is the SDL underscore quit. This is all caps. Remember, switch statements can only check integers or enums, and this is an enum whose value is 256 apparently. SDL quit, in that case we're going to set running to false. That's going to kill our main loop. Or you could just type return 0. It's best practice to go down here after your main loop and destroy your window. So you can type SDL destroy window, pass it your window, and then SDL quit. That shuts down all the systems. And there's one more thing we should be doing that I haven't done yet. It's called SDL init. You should initialize SDL before you use it, otherwise you can end up with bugs. So to do that, we just call SDL init and SDL underscore init underscore everything. Now if we had created all of this stuff in main, it would be fine. But since we're up here in global space, it's not happy with the function call and nothing to do with it. So normally I would just create some weird integer and assign it to that. Just so I could create my window in global space. I like to have my window and my renderer in global space because the renderer requires the window, so that's why the window needs to be global. And then the renderer is used everywhere you draw stuff. So you don't have to do it this way. You can pass your renderer around in all your classes that use it, and that's fine. It's just a lot more work, a lot more typing. So if you like using globals, you want to use a global renderer, you can do it like this. We'll extern it in a minute, and then it will be available in all the header files, all the class files. All right, that should work. Go ahead and run that and see if you can close your window now by clicking on the X. Textures are going to be pointers, and we'll just call it texture for right now, equals img underscore load texture. Alright, and when you load a texture, you're going to pass it the renderer, and then you're going to give it a file name. File names go in quotes, they're strings, and so I think mine is called main menu.png. You have to put the extension on there. Let me make sure I actually have that image in here. I don't. And so a lot of times, if you try to run something like this, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we try to draw it and it did not show up, it's usually because it did not load correctly. And so you can do something like this. You can put an if statement here. If texture. Basically saying if it did not load, out SDL underscore, actually because it's an image, img underscore get error. And then we'll give you a little error message in the console, hey, we couldn't find this file. So let's try that. This couldn't open main menu.png. You can also get other good errors, like if you forgot to bring in all of your DLLs, it will tell you, hey, we're missing this DLL.
So like, let's say you have like an image folder inside of the directory. So would you just put the path to that folder?
It would do it like that.
Yeah.
For assets. Use the / though. If you use backslash, you have to put 2.
If it's in the folder with your project, you can just reference the name. If it's in the folder with the project, you can just write the name.
Right. If it's just in there loose, you can just put the name. If you're organized, you want to put it in a folder, write your folder name and then put a /. All right, to draw this thing, we're going to come down here before we present. That's important. Before you present, we'll do SDL underscore render copy. So we're going to copy our image to the renderer, pass it the renderer, pass it your texture, and then for right now, these 2 other arguments we'll leave as null. I'll come back to that in a minute. Those are rectangles, so if you wanted to specify a specific part of your texture, you could do that. Like a sprite sheet, you just want that one thing. And then you can also have it draw to a specific rectangle somewhere on the screen. For right now, we'll just leave them both as null. That will bring in the entire texture and stretch it across the entire screen. I'm going to bring my image over.
Can your main menu image like work as a GIF file?
Maybe. It won't be animated.
Okay, so how would you do that if you did want it to be animated?
You need a different library. I don't think SDL image supports the GIFs or whatever you want to call it, but I don't know. It'd take a little more research, or you have to manually go in there and code that animation, which is not terrible. I've done it using PNG sprite sheets, but I don't think it will just play out of the box. Okay, so if you've got your image in that folder and everything's worked correctly, it should be showing up on the screen. Are we good?
I'm still getting that you can't find the image.
Probably didn't spell it right. Not in the right folder. What's the SDL error say?
Yeah. I did.
We'll just put that up there above the loop. Somewhere in main, create a rectangle. SDL underscore rect. This is a structure. It has 4 variables in it. They're all integers. That can be important. That is kind of a pain later on, but they are all integers. They do not store a decimal.
Assuming the points.
We've got a height, or no, we have an X and a Y. That'll be the top left corner, and Y is coming down from the top of the screen. So the very top is 0. As Y increases, you're moving down the screen. X is 0 on the left, and moving across to the right is positive.
So X is normal and Y is.
Y is flipped
Yeah.
from Cartesian.
Ah.
So first 2 parameters are X and Y. If you're ever wondering, hey, what is a SDL rect or whatever, you can right click on it in peak definition and it will go there and show you. We've got an X and a Y and a width and a height in that order.
Huh. That's so cool, actually.
That's handy. So X and Y, if we're going to display the entire image at a specific point in the screen, let's say we want to come in 100 and then go down 100, we could do that. And then the height and the width, we could make those whatever you want, 200 by 300. It'll be all skewed up. I initialized this rectangle all at once. The other way of doing it, I could have done SDL underscore rect, some name, comma, and then said r.x equals thing. But you could do it that way. But this is kind of all in one.
The simple, easier way.
Oh, it's just different. But if you've never seen that, now you've seen it and you know what it does. The important thing is that this goes in the order that those variables are listed in that structure. That's why it can be good to peek at this thing and see what the order is. So I do X, Y, width, height. All right, here we go. With a rectangle, there's a couple of functions you could just straight up draw a rectangle if you want to. Let's do that first. Let's set the draw color for the rectangle. If you want to, just copy this line and paste it. We don't need the clear. I didn't mean to get that. Just set a draw color, and for this rectangle, I want my rectangle to be blue. Red, green, blue, so I'll put some strong numbers on the blue. And then to draw a rectangle, you can do draw rect, SDL, let's see, SDL underscore render, draw rect. And pass it the render and pass it the rectangle. You pass your rectangles by reference. By reference, like that. And let's look at this. We're going to set a draw color to blue. We're going to draw the rectangle. We're going to copy our background image. Well, that's going to cover up our rectangle. Let's put the background image first. Draw order is important. Alright, so recap. We're going to draw our background image. We're going to change our color, draw our rectangle, present to the screen, set the draw color to some black or something, and clear the renderer. Alright, so let's run that. Should have a rectangle on the screen. If you want it solid, you can do, instead of draw rect, you can do fill rect. And fill rect will give you a solid rectangle. Alright, you don't have to do either of those, so I'm going to comment those out. And we'll go down here to where, or sorry, up here where we're actually drawing our image. And there's a source. So like I said, if you had a sprite sheet, you might want to move a rectangle along that sprite sheet to pick a certain sprite. That's what this first rectangle is for. The second one is, where do you want to put it on your screen? So our destination rectangle. So now run that. And you'll see your image skewed up against whatever background color you have. Is everyone successful? Yeah. Anyone need help? All right, let's pause and we'll catch. We load textures like this, not in a loop. We set up rectangles like this to control those textures or to extract a specific part of that image. This is how we do error handling. This is our event handler. You could, we only have a quit event in here right now, but you could do mouse clicks, and we'll do that eventually. You can do joystick movement, keyboard input, all kinds of stuff inside with the poll events. This is how we put an image on the screen, or on the canvas really. We do a render copy. There's another function called render copy EX that you can use to like spin the image if you want to rotate it. You can flip it, you know, you could do like a horizontal flip or vertical flip or both. So render copy EX is another option if you want more than just putting the image on the screen. Setting the draw color, we could draw or fill a rectangle. And we also use setting that draw color to clear the canvas to a specific color. Present, you should only call this once in your entire program. That's going to show that image to the screen. Just remember, everything's kind of done in the background up until you call present. This is our cleanup. Destroy the window. We'll destroy the window. Quit is the opposite of initialize. It just, you know, frees up all the memory for all the subsystems that SDL is using. Another good one to know is SDL_destroy texture. You can pass that your texture. That frees up the memory that that texture is using. All of this happens anyways at the end of the program, but sometimes it's important, a lot of times it's important to do that within the program. You know, you load level 1, let's say you're making a big game, you load level 1, you're going to load in all these textures, and then when you're done with level 1, you want to free up all those textures to go to the next level, or the person died, or what, they quit, who knows. So destroy texture is a good one.
So since texture is a pointer, is it actually just pointing at a file in our project folder, or is it actually, are we actually loading it?
When you load it, it's going to go to that file in that folder and store that image in memory. Your pointer points to that memory. So we can access the texture with the pointer as often as we want. But if you were to try to access it from the hard drive every time, that's a very slow process. All right, if we understand the basics, at least some idea of the basics, we want to start moving this into a state machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new header file. So let's do, right click on the project, add, new item, header file. And I will call this globals.h. I'm going to stick all my globals, anything that I'm going to be using everywhere in the program, I'm going to put in a globals file. Like the renderer, because anything that gets drawn needs the renderer. There's also a thing called delta time. That's how much time passes between each frame. You need to use that almost everywhere. I like to put it as a global. So we'll add a global header file. You can also put all your includes in here. Everything that needs to be included everywhere, you can just put it in here once, and then everywhere else that needs it, you'll just include globals. So with that in mind, let's go to state.h and grab string and IOStream. We'll cut those out, paste them in globals. And then back in the header file, we'll just include globals. And then from main, we'll do the same thing. We'll grab SDL and SDL image, cut those, paste those in globals.
Globals.h in the state header file or
State header file.
Oh,
Make sure you use the quotes.
oh, quotes.
If it's your own header file that you made, use quotes. Basically, if you're not pulling it in through the linker, use quotes. All right, we can also move our externs into the global. So at the bottom of state.h, where we declared all these externs, you can move those to global. Now it's not going to know what state is. So we need to declare that class. And then also from main, we're going to take this initialization line, paste that up there. If you don't initialize it before you create everything, it usually just crashes. And then we're going to declare our window and our renderer in globals, and we'll instantiate them somewhere else. So and this will be an extern as well. And you can cut these lines out of main now. And for the time being, really our externs, they have to be initialized somewhere in global space in a source file. So I've put them right here. Where we initialized our state externs. And as long as state.h has globals included, that should be just fine. Alright, we've only got about 5 more minutes.
What else did you write at the bottom of the global.h file?
I'm just declaring all of my globals here.
Okay.
I want my states to be global. They don't have to be. Some people will create another class for the state machine and they'll throw all this stuff in there, and you can do that, that's fine. It's just
Where are you defining SDL window?
okay, we declared them here as externs, so they have to be defined in a source file. You can define them in main, or you can define them in state.
Okay, so you can define them also where you're defining the other ones.
Right, that's what I did. I just moved down to the bottom of state.cpp and paste the definitions in there. Our event handler and our main loop and all of that stuff is going to be handled individually by each state of the program. So let's take for right now, let's just take everything in the main loop, but while running loop, cut that out and bring it over to state.cpp, and let's start with main menu. We can delete the current line in there and paste this in there. And we could set our running variable up. And our event. we'll hold off on the texture for now. Yeah, it's probably it's kind of in pieces right now.
Oh no, mine is just stopped responding altogether. Mine decided that everything was an error.
Everything.
Pasting one line and it's great.
All things are errors.
Should we define the SDL2 and global headers?
What's that?
Like the SDL event, should we define that in the global header?
I wouldn't make the event global. We might make the running variable global. Or you could try it.
But where did you declare it?
Right now I just have it in the state machine. Every time we enter the update, it's just going to create one for the update function.
Okay.
And then update will run its own little loop like main was doing until we leave that state. And now we can go back to our old code. It was basically a while loop. It said current enter and current update. I kind of hate to tear it all apart and move it all around like this, but I feel like it's important to understand how SDL is working so you can debug it as you go. And if I had set it up all over the place, it's harder to follow exactly what it's doing, how it works. All right, if it's still crashing, it's okay, save it. We'll straighten it out later. But we're out of time.